My name is Claire Whitman. I'm 34 years old. And until last year, I believed love was something you proved by planning, by talking about the future like it was already guaranteed. I had been with my boyfriend, Mark Reynolds, for 3 years. We met at a work conference, one of those beige hotel ballrooms where everyone pretends networking isn't just flirting with resumes. He worked in marketing. I worked in software development. We started talking during a coffee break, bonded over mutual exhaustion and bad conference pastries, and by the end of the weekend, he had my number and a confidence that felt reassuring. Mark was charming in an easy way, effortless, the kind of man who made everything sound manageable. Problems were temporary. Stress was just part of the process. Life, according to him, always worked itself out. I liked that. After a year, we moved in together. A modest apartment, neutral walls, shared routines, grocery lists on the fridge, mornings that felt stable and predictable. We talked about marriage casually at first, jokes about rings, hypothetical timelines, then more seriously, kids, schools, house layouts, future vacations. It felt real, it felt earned. Then, in March, my body started betraying me. It began quietly, fatigue that sleep didn't touch, joint pain that made mornings feel like punishment, rashes that came and went without explanation. I told myself it was stress, overwork, burnout. But weeks turned into months. Doctors became a rotation. Blood tests, MRIs, biopsies, waiting rooms that smelled like disinfectant and fear. 4 months of uncertainty, of being poked, scanned, questioned. In July, I finally got an answer. Autoimmune disorder. Not fatal, not contagious, not curable. Manageable, the word they kept using, like it was supposed to soften the reality. That night, I told Mark over Chinese takeout. I was too tired to cook, too exhausted to stand. I explained everything, the diagnosis, the medication, the lifestyle changes, the fact that some days would just be bad. He listened quietly, too quietly. So this is forever, he asked? Yes. He nodded, staring at his food. That's a lot. I didn't realize it then, but that was the moment something in him closed. Something permanent. And I wouldn't understand the cost of that silence until it was already too late. The first few weeks after the diagnosis felt like learning how to live inside a stranger's body. The medication came with instructions that sounded deceptively simple. Take once daily, avoid certain foods, monitor symptoms. But no one warned me how brutal the adjustment would be. Nausea that rolled in without warning. Headaches that made light feel sharp. Brain fog so thick I'd forget what I was saying mid-sentence. Some days I slept 12 hours and still woke up exhausted. Mark said he understood. At least that's what he said out loud. In practice, understanding looked a lot like distance. He started coming home later. Said work was hectic, projects were piling up, deadlines were non-negotiable. When I was curled up on the couch, he'd hover near the door, keys already in hand, asking, "You okay?" In the same tone someone asks about the weather. Polite, automatic, already halfway gone. I tried to talk to him, more than once. "I don't need you to fix this," I told him one night. "I just need you here." "I am here," he said, scrolling through his phone. "I'm giving you space to rest." "I don't want space," I said. "I want my partner." He sighed, like I was asking for something unreasonable. The truth was, he was physically present just enough to claim effort, but emotionally, he'd already checked out. 2 months after the diagnosis, my body crashed. It was one of those flare-ups that doesn't announce itself. I woke up in pain so sharp it felt electrical. My joints burned. My muscles refused to cooperate. I tried to sit up and immediately collapsed back onto the mattress. Even reaching for the water on my nightstand felt impossible. I called Mark at work. "Can you come home?" I asked. My voice sounded small. I hated that. "I really need help." "I'm in the middle of something," he said. I could hear people talking in the background. Normal voices. Normal lives. "Please," I said. "I can barely move." "Did you take your medication?" "Yes." "Then rest. I'll be home later." "When?" "I don't know. When I'm done." He hung up before I could say anything else. He came home at 9 p.m. I'd been in bed all day. Hadn't eaten. Hadn't showered. I lay there staring at the ceiling, trying not to cry. Not just from the pain, but from the humiliation of needing help and not getting it. Mark stood in the doorway and looked at me. "You're still in bed? I told you today was bad." He sighed. "Did you eat?" I couldn't get up. "There's food in the kitchen." "I needed you." He sat on the edge of the bed but didn't look at me. Stared straight ahead, jaw tight. "I can't drop everything every time you don't feel well." This is the first time I've asked you to come home early, I said. The first time. It feels like every time lately, he said. You're always sick. Yes, I said quietly. That's what being sick means. Silence. Then he said it. I don't think I can do this. My stomach dropped. Do what? This, he said, gesturing vaguely at me. At the room. At my body. Being with someone who's sick. I'm not asking you to take care of me, I said. I'm asking you to be my partner. It's the same thing now. No, I said, it's not. He stood up, pacing. When we got together, you were healthy, active. We traveled, we went hiking. Now you're this. I have a medical condition, I said. I'm still me. He shook his head. The person I fell in love with didn't spend all day in bed, didn't cancel plans constantly, didn't need help just to function. The words hit harder than the pain ever had. I whispered, I didn't choose this. Neither did I, he said. Then he finally looked at me. I'm not built to stay with sick people. There it was, clean, honest, final. I can't be the caretaker girlfriend, he added. It's not who I am. I'm not asking you to be a caretaker, I said. I'm asking you to love me. You need too much, he replied, and I can't give it. I nodded. Then we're done. Relief flashed across his face before he could hide it. I guess we are. He left the room. I heard him making calls in the living room, explaining, justifying, already rewriting the story. I didn't beg. I didn't chase him. I lay there, listening to the sound of my 3-year relationship ending, because I'd become inconvenient. Mark moved out the following week. Not dramatically, not with shouting or slammed doors. He waited until I was at a doctor's appointment. When I came home, the apartment felt hollow. His shoes were gone from the entryway, the bathroom drawer half empty, his side of the closet stripped clean, hangers clacking together like they were embarrassed by the space. His key lay on the counter. No note, no goodbye, no acknowledgement that 3 years of shared life had existed. I stood there longer than I should have, trying to decide which hurt more, the abandonment or how efficiently he'd erased himself. I texted him once. Understood. That was it. No accusations, no pleading, no attempts to change his mind. He'd been clear, and I refused to beg someone who had already decided I was too much. The first month was brutal. The illness didn't pause for heartbreak. If anything, it intensified. My body was already at war with itself. Now my mind joined in. I learned very quickly how loud silence can be when you're alone and unwell. What surprised me was who showed up. My friends rotated without being asked. Someone dropped off groceries every Sunday. Another friend came by just to sit with me. No agenda, no advice, just presence. They helped me clean when bending made me dizzy. Drove me to appointments when I couldn't trust myself behind the wheel. They did everything Mark had insisted he couldn't. One afternoon, a friend looked at me and said, "He really left because you got sick?" Yes. She shook her head slowly. That's cold. I laughed, but it sounded wrong in my own ears. That's life, apparently. No, she said firmly. That's him. Those words stayed with me. Once the medication stabilized, I made a decision. If my body was going to be unpredictable, I was at least going to understand it. I read everything. Medical journals, patient forums, research studies. I took notes, asked questions, challenged doctors when something didn't sit right. I refused to be a passive participant in my own life. And slowly, not dramatically, but noticeably, things improved. Not cured, not perfect, but better. I went back to work full-time, adjusted my schedule, started walking again, short distances at first, then longer, swam, stretched, learned what my limits were instead of resenting them. 3 months after the breakup, my doctor suggested I join a local in-person support group. You don't have to do this alone, she said. The group met once a week at a community center. 8 people, different ages, different conditions, same exhaustion, etched into everyone's faces. That's where I met Hannah. She was a few years older than me, calm, grounded, the kind of woman who didn't rush to fill silence. She listened in a way that made you feel like your words mattered. We started talking after meetings, then grabbing coffee, comparing notes, medications that worked, doctors to avoid, tricks for getting through bad days. She never treated my illness like a flaw. One afternoon, she asked, "Do you date anymore?" I laughed. No. Why? Because apparently I'm damaged goods. She looked at me, unimpressed. Everyone has something. Yours just happens to be visible. That was the first time since Mark left that I felt seen. We became friends, real ones, the kind built on honesty, not performance. And for the first time in months, I wasn't just surviving. I was building something new, even if I didn't know what it would become yet. Hannah and I stayed friends. Intentionally so. After everything I'd been through, I didn't trust my instincts where love was concerned. Friendship felt safer, cleaner. There were no expectations attached to it, no fear of being measured, no quiet evaluations of whether I was still worth it on bad days. Through Hannah, I met Evan Brooks. He volunteered with the same chronic illness nonprofit she did, mostly logistics, event coordination, the unglamorous work that keeps things running. He wasn't loud, wasn't charming in the way Mark had been. He listened more than he spoke, and when he did speak, it was thoughtful, deliberate. We talked after a fundraiser one evening. Nothing heavy. Books, work, travel he'd done before settling into a quieter life. He didn't ask intrusive questions about my health. Didn't pretend it wasn't there either. It was easy. Weeks passed, then months. Evan started texting, checking in, asking how my day actually went, and waiting for the answer. When I canceled plans because my body gave out, he didn't sigh or joke or tell me it was fine in a way that made it feel like it wasn't. He just said, "Do you want company or do you want rest?" That question changed everything. We started dating slowly, painfully slowly by modern standards. No rush, no pressure, no pretending to be better than I was. He never once asked when I'd go back to normal. He learned my routines, my warning signs, celebrated good days without expecting them to last forever, sat beside me on bad ones without making them about himself. Around that time, I started writing. At first, it was just for me, a way to process the anger I hadn't let myself feel. Then I posted a piece online about being abandoned after a diagnosis, about learning that love, for some people, has an expiration date. The response was immediate. Messages poured in, people telling me my story sounded like theirs, that they'd been left too, that they thought they were alone. I kept writing. One post turned into several turned into a following. Then an email arrived from a small publisher. They asked if I'd ever considered expanding my writing into a full-length book about relationships and chronic illness, about abandonment and rebuilding, about what happens after people leave. I said yes before I could talk myself out of it. For 6 months, I wrote every evening, every weekend. Evan read drafts when I asked, offered feedback when I wanted it, never tried to shape my voice, just helped me make it clearer. The book was published 8 months after Mark walked out. It wasn't a bestseller, not yet, but it sold, it found its people. And somewhere along the way, without any grand declaration, Evan became home. Just when I thought the hardest part was behind me, the past started knocking again. I didn't hear about Mark right away. Life has a way of moving forward when you stop looking over your shoulder. My days were full again. Work, writing, managing my health, nonprofit events, quiet nights with Evan that felt steady instead of electric, safe instead of thrilling. Then a mutual friend mentioned him casually, like it was nothing. "He's not doing great," she said. "Lost his job during restructuring, been bouncing between places. Dating hasn't gone well." I didn't ask follow-up questions. But a week later, my phone buzzed with a notification I hadn't expected. LinkedIn. "Congratulations on the book. I saw the article. I always knew you were talented." Professional, neutral, calculated. I stared at it longer than I should have. Then I replied with exactly 2 words. "Thank you." That should have been the end of it. It wasn't. A few days later, "I'd love to read it. Where can I buy it?" Then, "Is it about us?" Then, "Should I be worried about how you portrayed me?" I kept my responses minimal, factual, detached. "It's about my experience. You're part of that experience." He bought the book. I know because he posted about it. A screenshot of the purchase confirmation, captioned, "Supporting my ex's creative work. So proud of how she turned pain into purpose." Evan saw it before I did. "He's trying to insert himself into your success," he said calmly, like he didn't walk away from the hard part. "I know," I replied, "but he doesn't get access." The messages kept coming. Weekly, never urgent, always nostalgic. "Remember that concert we went to? I hope your health is better. Your book made me think about things differently." Then he asked to meet. "Just coffee, to talk about everything." I didn't soften my reply. "There is no everything. That ended when you left." He pushed. "I want to explain. I wasn't ready then. I've grown." "You don't get to leave someone at their lowest and come back for the reward," I wrote. That should have closed the door. Instead, he showed up. It was at a nonprofit event. Public, open to the community. He had every right to be there. That's what made it worse. He approached during a break. Evan was across the room, already watching, already moving toward us. "You're doing amazing work," Mark said. "This place, it's incredible." "Thank you," I replied. "I read the book," he continued, "twice." "Okay, you made me sound heartless." "I wrote what happened." "I was scared," he said. "I didn't know how to handle it." "Being scared doesn't excuse abandoning someone," I said quietly. That's when Evan reached us. He extended his hand, polite, steady. "Hi, I'm Evan." Mark's expression shifted instantly. Recognition, realization, loss. "Oh," he said, "you're her partner." "Yes," Evan replied, "the one who stayed." Silence stretched between us. Mark swallowed. "I should go." "Yes," Evan said gently. "You probably should." Mark left without another word. 2 weeks later, he sent a long email. Apologies, explanations, therapy, growth, regret. "I've changed. I see it now. I miss us." I read it twice. Felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, just distance. Evan read it too. "He wants forgiveness, so he can stop being the villain in his own story," he said. I deleted the email. Didn't reply. Didn't acknowledge it. Some doors don't close loudly. They just disappear. But Mark wasn't done yet. And neither was the story. 3 months after I deleted Mark's email, my phone rang while I was making dinner. I almost didn't answer. Unknown number. I let it buzz once, twice, then picked up. "Hi, is this Claire Whitman?" "Yes. This is Rachel from Westbridge Publishing." I sat down slowly. They had read my book, not skimmed it, read it, passed it around, talked about it in meetings. They wanted to reprint it, wider distribution, real marketing, a national release. And there was more. "We'd like to expand it," Rachel said, "add new chapters, broaden the scope, and we'd like your partner to co-author the new edition." I looked at Evan, who was watching my face carefully. They wanted both perspectives. The person who was left, and the person who stayed. We said yes. The next 4 months were intense. Writing, revising, reliving moments I thought I'd already made peace with. Evan wrote about what it was like to choose someone knowing things wouldn't always be easy. About learning to love without expecting convenience. The new edition launched 8 months later. It hit bestseller list I never imagined my name would be on. Suddenly, my story wasn't just mine. It was everywhere. Podcasts, conferences, medical schools, panels about patient experience and relationships under pressure. My face in places Mark would never expect to see it. That's when I heard, through mutual friends, that he'd noticed. Again, he asked how I was doing. They told him the truth, that my health was stable, that my career was thriving, that I was engaged. "How did he react?" a friend asked me later. "He cried," she said quietly, said he made the biggest mistake of his life. But mistakes don't reverse time. A year later, Evan and I got married. Small ceremony, close friends, family who showed up when things were hard, not just when they were celebratory. People who stayed. The third edition of the book came out last month, translated into 6 languages, used in hospitals, support groups, classrooms, making a difference. Mark bought that one too. He posted about it again, still so proud of her. Grateful her story helped so many people. Evan laughed when he saw it. "He's still trying to rewrite history." "He can watch," I said, from the outside, "because that's where he belongs." 2 years ago, Mark told me he wasn't built to stay with sick people. What he really meant was he wasn't built to love without conditions. I didn't beg. I said understood. And in doing so, I made space for a life and a love that didn't disappear when things got hard. I'm 34 years old, married to someone who sees past the illness to the person, building a life that matters. And everywhere Mark looks now, he sees my name, attached to a story he chose not to be part of. Some people leave when staying requires courage. Others stay and become family,